Oh, hello, little seedlings. We got some growth. Hey everyone, welcome back to Chaos Maker's Hobby House. If you're new here, I want to welcome you to the channel. If you're not new here, well, thanks for coming back. I wanted to give you a little bit of an update what's going on with the garden here because my seedlings are germinating, and I need to get moving, getting the garden ready to plant in because that's a little over a month away. I got a lot to do. So in one of my more recent videos, I shared how I am digging out all the soil in all my garden beds and putting wire mesh hardware cloth at the bottom of them before refilling them with soil because I have a mole problem, and the moles are tunneling into my garden beds and disrupting roots and all that good stuff. But there were a few beds that I couldn't do because I needed to do some repairs on them. If you haven't seen where I explained how my garden came to be, basically bought my house, spent all the money buying my house, didn't have much left over to really put up a big garden the way I wanted to, so I collected old pallets and made all my garden beds out of pallet wood, knowing completely well that it was not going to last super long and I would eventually have to replace the wood. Well, it's lasted, some of them have lasted over 3 years, so that's been really nice. I have had to replace a few so far, and what I replaced them with were 2x10s, untreated lumber, just dimensional lumber from big box stores. Knowing, back when I would garden with my dad, we'd build garden beds out of untreated lumber and they would last 7+ years. So I figured, that won't be an issue. 7+ years is plenty long enough for me to replace as needed and not have to replace real frequently. Let's just say they don't make lumber like they used to because I dug out one of the beds that is under 2 years old. Under 2 years old. Hasn't even had its second birthday. And it's the 2x10 dimensional lumber, and let me just pop up what I found real quick. It's rotten. Very, very, very rotten on the inside. There's no insect activity. I checked, I dug through all the rotten wood. No termites, no wood ants, no nothing. I think I found like one earwig. It's just today's lumber, unfortunately. So back in the day, the lumber that would be used for dimensional lumber, like pine, was made from old wood, old trees. Old trees are denser than young wood. Their rings are closer together. The wood is more durable. It's denser. Well, there's not much old wood out there anymore. So in order to keep up with the demand of supplying lumber, they are growing, what do you want to call it? Forests, harvesting sites. I don't even know what you would really call it, but basically large areas of young wood. They are grown fast, they are harvested young, and they are not very dense. Their rings, much fewer rings because the growth rings happen over time, and causes the wood to be, well, more dense. I'm going to say dense a lot. A little scattered today. But yeah, so the young wood that is now what dimensional lumber is made out of doesn't hold up as well because it's not as dense. So it's rotting a lot faster than I expected. So now I'm left with a dilemma because I was just going to replace all this pallet wood with 2x10s, dimensional lumber from the box stores. But now that I see that, I don't want to be replacing wood every 2 years or so. It's not feasible. I don't have the time and I don't have the funds to be dedicating that much to garden plots. So I had to think of, what can I do? Now, I could use treated. Everything nowadays says that the treated lumber in today's market is non-toxic, completely safe to use in garden beds. And that may be the case, but I just rather not. So I don't want treated wood touching my garden soil. Okay, so if we can't use treated and untreated just rots away in 2 years, what do we do? Off to Google. But I saw where people were using corrugated metal roofing, those big roofing panels, cutting them down to the size that they wanted and attaching frames around it to make their garden beds. Thought, I mean, they make those prefab ones out of a corrugated metal paneling as well. Those aren't super customizable though, and not the most cost effective, so I don't think they will work for my garden. Let me look into these metal roofing panels I can get at Home Depot. They won't fit in my car. They won't fit in my car. They are pricey and they have sharp edges, especially once cut. And I would have to cut them a lot because they are giant sheets and I don't want my beds to be that deep. I want them to be like maybe 12 inches deep. Well, what else can I do then? Then I remembered there's another corrugated metal. The metal garden edging, the landscape edging that a lot of people will use around the landscaping in front of their house to have a nice divide between their lawn and, say, a flower bed or their shrubbery landscaping stuff. Let me look into this. Okay. 25-foot rolls. Some of them came even longer. You can get a roll of it for relatively inexpensive. And they come in different heights. I wanted to be about 12 inches. They come in 12-inch heights. So I jumped on Amazon and ordered me a bunch of rolls of this metal edging at 12 inches high. I'll show you what it looks like in a minute here. And started working on this last weekend. The weather got really crummy, so I haven't worked on it since. But I wanted to show you what I'm doing. So if you're running into a situation similar to mine, this may be an option for you because it's going to keep the soil from making direct contact with wood. Okay, so this is one of the beds I'm desperately in need of replacing, but yeah, that's the old pallet wood. Held up pretty good, all things considering. I mean, it's been over 3 years. But this is how I'm replacing it. You'll notice this part, that's the metal, but it does have a decorative finish on it. That's simply because it was on sale, and I have a relatively large area to do, so on sale is good. But a lot of times it just comes in like the silver metal material. Basically, I am using treated lumber where it contacts the ground only, because that lumber does not come in contact with the soil at all and will hold up longer since it is in contact with the ground. I didn't want to use treated on these top posts or support posts because rain splashing over the edge will potentially wash whatever is treated on the wood into my garden, and plus treated wood is more expensive, and it's just a decorative edge to keep the corrugated metal from bowing. But on the inside, there's no wood exposed there. The metal goes all the way down to the ground and keeps none of the soil from touching the wood. So today I kind of want to pick up where I left off, which would be extending it around this way. We'll see how far we get. But I wanted to show you how I'm doing it in case you're curious or want to do something similar. And one thing I really like about this corrugated landscape edging, the edge is beveled. No sharp edges, because I guarantee I will be reaching over this at some point, brush my arm against one of the edges, and have a bad day. The only sharp edges are the edges that are cut, and I am strategically placing them so they won't be exposed. So, let me build this frame and then show you from there. All right, so built my frames. For this one, if it were any longer, I would have put a support bar in the middle, but it should be fine without one because the metal is going to be attached to the back, giving it a little extra support. And this is actually the roll of landscape edging that I got. I'm going to screw it onto the back of those frames with lathe screws. All right, now you can kind of see how everything attaches. All the lathe screws holding it in place with the bottom edge just slightly lower than the bottom board. I did find that doing it in sections instead of like larger sections that are already together for the corners is a lot easier than doing one section, then attaching the frame and then trying to screw the the edging to that frame that you just screwed on. That's a little more challenging. I did that for this section and a very large hammer was involved. But yeah, so none of the wood is going to make contact with the soil. I am not going to fill the bed up past this edge. This overhang wood is just an aesthetic choice and to give me a little bit of a lip to potentially sit on. But yeah, now I just need to put it in place. Well, actually, first I need to take out all of the wood that's in the way so I can replace this frame with the new frame. Shouldn't be too hard because so far everything I've taken out of the garden has pretty much just fallen off because it was rotted. Yep, as I thought, no trouble at all. All the rotten wood. Pro tip, do this when the soil is pretty damp and it'll just kind of hold together and you won't have any spillage. Well, I got a little overconfident and decided to do that panel at the same time as these panels, and the hammer had to assist. But another section done. It's gonna take some time to eventually fill these beds all the way up to the new depth because that's a substantial amount of soil. And I'm not gonna be bringing any in. I'm just gonna top with compost as I make it. But yeah. Hopefully this is the fix. If this doesn't fix the issue of raised garden bed longevity, I'm not sure what will without having to really basically start over. So, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed this is what works. And it looks pretty, at least I think it does. And I know a lot of this can be avoided if I didn't raise bed garden and just gardened in the ground. My garden is sitting on top of solid clay and underground power lines. So we don't want to dig in this ground. We don't want to grow things directly in the ground here. Raised bed is kind of my only option right now, or it'll drown from being way too wet because the clay doesn't drain, or interfere with underground cables, which is definitely something I want to avoid. So raised bed it is. We'll just keep doing the trial and error thing until we find something that works. But I've got a lot more to do, a lot more of this garden bed. It's not all going to get done this spring, I guarantee it. But I do want to get the worst sections done with. So basically the sections that are the original pallet wood, because that doesn't long for this world. It crumbles in your hands. I could probably get another year if I had to out of the 2x10s that I put in last year or the year before, depending on what part of the garden you look at. But eventually it'll all be this new corrugated landscape edging. It was a little scattered, got a lot on my to-do list, got a lot on my mind, but I hope you enjoyed. I hope this helped you in some way or you learned something new. And until next time, see you later.